So this is to make sure you're in the right webinar. So this is a webinar dealing with capability and conduct, and I'm Louise Rance. So first of all, to take you through a little bit about Clover HR before we get into the nitty-gritty of the webinar. So this is a little bit about ourselves. As you can see, these are our recent team photos. There's over 25 HR business partners that work throughout the UK. And we aim to provide a bespoke HR consultancy service to our clients, giving you our expertise and most importantly, peace of mind that all your people, matters and issues are being taken care of. If you do work with us already, you'll know that you have a local business partner that really gets to know your business and can provide you with the best quality service. And we're responsive. We support you 7 days a week, so you're never on your own. This is just something I wanted to tell you about because we're particularly proud of it. So we went for, as Clover HR, and gained the ISO 9001 standard, the quality standard. And what this demonstrates is that all our quality management processes are robust and enable us to provide you with that quality service. And we were one of the very few HR consultancies that has gained this standard. So a little bit about me. As I said, I'm Louise Rance. I'm a HR business partner with Clover HR. I have HR experience spanning in over 20 years working with major companies, including Manchester United, Job Centre Plus, Great Places Housing Group, and Probation Service, to name but a few. I've worked at HR manager and HR business partner level. And I now use that experience to support small and medium-sized companies. So in terms of questions, I encourage you to put any questions you have in the chat box and we will answer them. I'm joined today by my colleague, Lynn Berman, who's Assistant Director with Clover HR. It's also lots of years experience working at HR manager, HR director level, and Lynn will be answering your chats in there. I have muted the microphones just so that we can make sure that the webinar flows freely. But again, put your questions in the chat box and we'll also have time at the end to answer any questions that you have. So this is what we're going to be going through today. So staff member not performing at work, what's the reason? Is it conduct or is it capability? What's the difference between conduct and capability? As in, what's the difference as to how you deal with it and how you handle it? We'll then look at the conduct issue and what steps you'd need to take. Capability, skills and aptitude, the reasons being and the steps to take. We'll look at what can cause capability issues. How do you close that performance gap? Capability health issues. How do we deal with this and how do we treat it? Where can you find out more information? I'll give you some information sources as well at the end. Look at how from Clover HR we can help, and then we will do a summary. I'd be really interested to know how many of you have already dealt with conduct or capability issues already. So if you could just pop yes or no in the chat box, and my colleague Lynn will add those up and let us have the results of that at the end. Just to let you know, later on in the webinar, we'll look at a small case study. And I'll do a small poll, which will be asking you to determine from the case study whether you think it's conduct or capability. Okay, so conduct or capability, what is it? Staff member not performing at work, which category does it fall into? And put simply, this issue can be broken down into a can't do or a won't do. As in, is it within somebody's capability to perform to a higher standard, or are they simply not capable, and what's the reason for that? Where an employee can't perform a job role as required, it's likely to be a capability issue. Where an employee won't perform a job role as required, this is a conduct issue, and it can be dealt with under the normal misconduct and disciplinary procedure. So why is it important to know the reason for underperformance? So under the Employment Rights Act, there are 5 potentially fair reasons for dismissal. And 2 of those reasons are capability and conduct, if it's accompanied by a fair procedure. Capability is assessed by looking at somebody's skills, aptitude, health, or any physical or mental quality. So basically, capability falls into 2 categories: ill health or lack of skill, qualification, skills or aptitude. Conduct involves when there's breaches of the employment contract and the common law duties. And examples of that might be continual lateness, failure to follow management instructions, abuse of the organisation's computer system or internet access, bullying behaviour, theft, fighting, or a criminal offence. So this is a scenario that I just want to take you through. So as you can see there, this is what it is, and have a read of it. I won't read it all out, you can read it for yourselves, but it's about Jack, been working as part of a team of customer service advisors, late every Monday morning. Reason that he's given, he goes to a pub quiz on a Sunday, problem getting up. His manager's already explained to him about the importance of attending on time. Is this conduct or is it capability? So I'm just going to put on a small poll for you to choose which one of those you think that is. So I'll give you a bit of time to answer that poll, and then we'll look at the results. And while we're waiting for those results to come in as well, I'd like you to have a think about any questions you want to ask regarding conduct and capability and what we've talked about so far. I'll just give you a couple more seconds to answer that. Well, you're all pretty certain that that is a conduct issue. So I'm going to end the poll now and share the results. Okay, so most of you think that's a conduct issue. I think one person, yeah, everybody, in fact, everybody thinks that's a conduct issue, and you're absolutely right, it is. Why is it a conduct issue? Because from what we know so far, it's within Jack's control about whether he attends on time on a Monday morning. And it's by his actions that he's not enabling himself to do that. Of course, as with any employee situation, if you presented with this, you'd want to find out more. There could be more going on for Jack. There could be things going on in his home life. There could be a health issue. It could be abusing drugs or alcohol. We need to know all that. You need to be questioning him. What's getting in his way? What can be done to help before you go straight into action? But on the face of it, this looks like a conduct issue. So conduct issue, what do you do? Steps to take. So most companies will have a disciplinary policy that will guide you through what actions you need to take. If your company or organisation doesn't have a policy, then follow the ACAS code on disciplinary and grievance procedures, and you'll make sure that you're taking all the actions that you need to. The first stage is to conduct a fact-finding meeting as part of your investigation. A little bit what I just referred to about Jack. When as Jack's manager, you were questioning him about his late attendance and the reasons for it. That is your initial fact-finding meeting. So in that meeting, you find out what's happened, You're talking to the employee which part of the employment contract has been breached. You're speaking to any witnesses if that's relevant to the particular issue. From your investigation, you will then determine whether the case needs to go forward to a disciplinary hearing. If it does, and it's going forward to a formal disciplinary hearing, you need to notify your employee in writing, spelling out what the allegation is, provide details of the meeting, including that they have the right to representation, and providing with any evidence you might be referring to in the hearing. It's advisable, wherever possible, a manager conducting the disciplinary hearing has not been involved with the investigation. So from the disciplinary process, these are possible outcomes that could stem from that. So a decision might be that there's no case to answer. It might be there is a case to answer. There's evidence that points to the fact that the employment contract has been breached. So you might issue a verbal or oral warning. You might issue a first written warning, which would stay on the file for 6 months. It could be a final written warning, which stays on the file for 12 months. It could be so serious that it results in dismissal, and you would need, in all those cases, an appeals process. And just so that you're aware, I know a lot of you will be, in terms of if somebody is dismissed and they take a claim to a tribunal, then they need to have a qualifying period in order to be able to do that. So for anyone employed before the 6th of April 2012, the qualifying period is 1 year's service. For anyone employed after that, the qualifying period is 2 years service. What's really important, though, is that you know there are exceptions to the qualifying service. So some reasons for dismissal are automatically unfair. So those reasons that are potentially automatically unfair would mean that somebody could take a case to tribunal immediately. Examples of that might be when it's a case of whistleblowing, dismissal of a health and safety rep, if it's a dismissal connected to maternity, or it's a trade union dismissal, trade union rep. Any discrimination claims, so if somebody can claim discrimination basically from day one of employment, and that could be discrimination that they feel has happened on the grounds of age, sex, ethnicity, disability. So you need to be aware of that. There are 5 potential fair reasons for dismissal, and those are capability, which we're talking about, conduct, redundancy, a statutory illegality, i.e. somebody's maybe forged the right to work papers, for instance, some other substantial reasons. And a dismissal would only be fair if, as an employer, you can show that you've acted in a fair and reasonable way and you've used an appropriate procedure, which is why we're so keen in HR to advise you on what procedure to use. And if an employee did take a case to tribunal, the tribunal would look at whether the employer has acted reasonably and fairly. The tribunal would also take into account the resources of the organisation and employer, the size, the income, etc. So moving on to capability now, and skills and aptitude. So we've talked about conduct and what we would do in that. We're now going to move on to talk about capability. So if you have an employee that's not reaching performance standards, there's 4 questions it's really useful to ask yourself. Does the employee know they're not performing up to expectation? Do they understand what those expectations are? Is there something outside of their control affecting performance? And this could be a difficult one, but am I, as a manager, in some way contributing to this problem? In order to answer these questions, your first step is to gather any evidence you have around poor performance. So you need factual evidence of why you feel somebody's not performing. So that could be they're not reaching the targets, they're not meeting customer service expectations, but you need to gather your evidence about what is actually happening. And once you've done that, then you need to have an honest, informal discussion with employee to pose the above questions. Ask them, ask them what they think about the performance. Do they understand what your expectations are, what's affecting it? So what sort of things can cause capability issues? So it could be that somebody has a lack of understanding about an organisation or job role. They actually don't understand what the expectations are, or they don't understand what they need to be doing. And then you'd be looking at, has there been a lack of training? Have they got all the support that they need? So has there been a lack of support? Did they exaggerate the experience that they had when you first interviewed them for the role, and actually they can't do what they told you to do at that standard? It might be that the employee doesn't fully understand the values and the objectives of the organisation. So be asking yourself, have you covered everything that needs to be covered during their probation? Different ways of working. It could be that an employee has been in a job role performing perfectly well, and then they change job roles, and suddenly, because of lack of experience, lack of knowledge, they're not performing as well. Or it could be a new computer system has been introduced that they've not quite got to grips with. Or it could be to do with the health. It could be either a health issue that they've already got that has become worse, or a new health issue. And these are the things you need to find out. So if their lack of performance is to do with gaps in knowledge or skill, then one of the things you can do, one of the actions you can take, is agree a performance improvement plan with them that will have set actions and set timescales and will include training and development. And during the time that you've got that performance plan in place, you need to ensure that they're receiving any necessary training and support and feedback. You'd set a review period, usually 3 to 6 months, where you'd meet with the employee to assess their progress. So if you feel a progress has been made, but some improvements still needed, you can extend that plan. If there's not been sufficient progress made, then you could move to a capability hearing. And this would be similar in format to a disciplinary hearing. So what about capability health issues? So if your employee has got health issues that are getting in the way of them being able to perform their job roles, the first thing you would do is consider, can you make any adjustments to that job role that will make it easier to meet those performance standards? Is there any assistance or support that you can put in? Are there any alternatives you can look at that will help performance improve? It would be really key here to seek medical or occupational health advice on their ability to undertake that particular job role, or to suggest other job roles they might be able to take. And if this process sort of goes through to a conclusion where you are considering dismissal, it's key that you have got current occupational health advice, at least within 3 months of the date of any dismissal. You need to follow a fair procedure. So make sure that the employee knows what procedure you're going through. They've got sufficient time and support to help the performance improve before you go to the next stage. But if you've tried all these things and performance still isn't coming up to standard, there's no alternatives available, you could consider medical capability dismissal. If it was a medical capability dismissal, then you would go through, I'll just go back to you would go through a procedure similar to dismissal, in that you would do your investigation, you would have a formal meeting which you've formally notified them about. They have the opportunity to bring a representative with them. You would look at all the evidence, look at what support's been put in place, look at any alternatives, and then there's no alternative but to dismiss. You would do the dismissal with a formal letter with the right of appeal. So we've gone through about conduct and capability. You can find more information by going onto the ACAS website, looking at CIPD, or coming to ourselves at Clover HR. So just to tell you more about Clover HR, as we've said, we're a team of experienced qualified HR business partners. We can help you with any performance issues, and we can also provide training for your managers on how to promote positive performance and deal with any issues that arise. So in summary, then, we've looked at the difference between conduct and capability, what can cause capability issues, actions that you can take to help close that performance gap, what steps to take when you're dealing with capability and performance, and where you can find more information. And we've outlined how Clover can support you. So Lynn, I know that you have been looking at the chat box. I'll just have a quick look through there. Yeah.
Okay, hi Louise. Yeah, thank you everyone for that. Some of you have quoted that you've experienced dealing with conduct and capability issues at work, so thank you for letting us know. A lot of the time Louise has mentioned it's can't or won't, and I've heard it mentioned skill or will, and that does come up in conversations quite a lot with clients that I deal with. One other important question I'm always asked is, why is it important to know the issue is capability or conduct? Why the difference? Why do we need to know, and what can it cause? So really, just to clarify on that for you guys, it avoids confusion, obviously, for the employee and the employer. There's a clear distinction then to improve on. They know what they've done wrong and what they need to do about it. When we've talked about, obviously, health reasons for the employee, the capability is so important to try and look at, is there any underlying health issues? But then the main aspect really is legislation is being followed correctly. As worst case scenario, obviously this could lead to tribunal. And just to give a case example I've had, when I went into a client to deal with a disciplinary hearing, there was already a warning on file for capability, but they were trying to go to the next level for conduct. And we had to start the process again, and it was frustrating for all, confusing for the employee. And really it's a time exercise that we have to get it right first time. So that's just an example really of where it did go wrong and the conduct and capability were merged into one. So just a point to clarify there how important it is to get distinction between the two. I don't think there's been any more questions, Louise, apart from a clarification on the qualifying period, which I've done, and somebody was after a template for a PDP, so we can help them with that after today. Yeah, so well done, Louise. Thank you. Over to you.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Lynn. I would I'd echo what you've said there as well in response to that question. I too have gone into cases where conduct and capability have been confused, and one process has intermingled with another one. We've had to start again. So it's really important to be clear right from the beginning is what is the issue that I'm dealing with and which process am I following. So I'd absolutely echo what you've said, Lynn. So I hope you've all enjoyed the webinar. I hope you've all got something useful and positive from it. Be very interested in your feedback. We're always looking to improve what we offer on our webinars. So I'd encourage you to do that. Thanks for your time. Have a great day, and hopefully see you at the next webinar.